I was speaking earlier about regenopause, and that when the woman falls in love with an inner purpose and she starts giving it into the world and sees it manifesting, it has something of the quality of falling in love with the unknown child. But the unknown child is yourself, as well as the larger world that you're participating in. And it feels to me at 81 that I'm entering a truly new phase of life. I feel I'm I like to make threshold into a verb. I'm thresholding because I haven't been here before, because the world hasn't been here before, and we are all members of a planetary body that hasn't been here before. And I feel I'm on planetary timing. And I was a cell in the planetary body whose function was to signal we're going towards the new. That's like being a baby in the womb, getting ready to do something when you're born. But the difference between the baby in the womb and the baby just born is the way I feel. I've been part of the baby in the womb. So I had a function, I was developing it, I was learning how to do certain things. But then we're going through a planetary shift where the crisis can destroy life, and is destroying life, but it's also creating this emergent life. So as a planetary experience, I think we're just barely like the head coming out. And my function now is different than the function in the womb. Using that analogy, my function is we're out, but we don't know it. We're suffering from the crises of birth, which is very dangerous. And the first thing we have to have is a coordinated breath. That's global coherence. There's a new work by Ervin Laszlo, and he wrote a book already published called Science and the Akashic Field. And this new book is called The Akasha Paradigm. And what his view is, he's attempting to confront modern science with this and to deal with it, is the degree of coherence at what he sees as the universal scale, that the entire universe has a coherent connectivity through non-locality, through entanglement, through morphic fields and all of that, such that that field is like an implicate order. It's informing the world as we know it, and then as we learn something, like everything we're doing, we go back in and we contribute to that coherent field, which then gives more, it's progressive to the next that come along. So the field itself, underlying reality, which he's calling coherence, is informed. It informs the universe, but the universal experience of each of us, as we learn something that leads to more intelligence and more love and more life, feeds that field so that those who come beyond us get more of it. And one of my real senses of the further reaches of the evolving human is continuity of consciousness through many bodies. I don't mean reincarnation, I don't mean life after death in the ordinary sense, but the universe relentlessly accumulates experience. The idea of dying and forgetting doesn't make sense to me. If we really are designed to be co-creators with the process of creation on a universal scale, and if there really is other life in the universe, and if we have some role to play at a universal scale, we're not going to do it in carbon-based mammalian bodies. What kind of bodies would be doing this? Without knowing that for sure, they're more like light bodies than they are heavy bodies. It's more like Gene Roddenberry in Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty. That's probably true. That consciousness can materialize and dematerialize bodies. And so I made what I call a metaphysical choice. I would like continuity of consciousness. I do not want to die and forget. I don't want to die and go to a static heaven. I don't want to die and be reborn. And I don't want to just turn to dust. So, is it possible that metaphysical preferences become evolutionary choices?
How important is that, is this particular time about not just a shift in consciousness and humanity, and all these things are combined, but just it seems like that last catalyst for a tipping point is a shift in perspective.
I think you're exactly right. And the perspective, one of the ways they describe it is an overview perspective. And that's a book by Frank White, who interviewed astronauts. And so many of them, as they were coming into Earth and seeing Earth from space, had a consciousness shift, like Edgar Mitchell, Rusty Schweickart, many of them. And the overview perspective, as Frank White describes it in this book, the overview perspective, I think it's called, is that, first of all, you see it as a whole, and you're transcending it in the seeing of it. And even though you're a part of what you're seeing, by seeing Earth from space, you're a part of a much, much larger perspective. And I have what I call evolutionary eyes. And if you have evolutionary eyes, you're ecstatic. It's a beautiful meaning of the word ecstasy. Ecstatic, standing outside of that process that you're observing while you're still in it. So I am in the process I'm observing, but I'm observing it from an overview perspective that's seeing where it's going. And I feel like one of the ways, if I'm talking about our crisis, is a birth. To see the birth, you have to be post-birth. So there's an intuitive knowing that the crisis is leading to this higher level of being. And those of us who know that, I'm calling this the welcoming committee. You have to stand outside the crisis to welcome what's coming through it, which then makes it easier for people to get through it. So our crisis is a birth. Conscious evolution is evolution by choice, not chance. Evolutionary spirituality is embodying the impulse of evolution. All of these type of mimetic codes, memes, ideas that when you hold them in your head, shift your behavior and eventually shift culture. Actually, from my own overview perspective, I saw planet Earth as one body, which it is. Not only as the astronauts saw it from space, which was a geographic, beautiful body, but I saw it as a living system. And I saw it struggling to coordinate. I saw the pain flowing through the mass media. I saw the separation and so forth. And then I actually saw a few frames ahead in the movie from the perspective, which is the empathy, the spirituality, the healing, the social innovations connecting. So I had a flash of how it feels from the perspective of being post the crisis. And when I came back into our particular vantage point, my cells remember getting through it as a crisis of birth and being of a function to help the birth get through. So the micro, if you are having universal consciousness, planet Earth is tiny. So if you're a real universal consciousness, you can see planet Earth as a microcosm, little teeny weeny, with 7 billion people thinking of the, well, Elizabeth Sattouris is so good on this. She said the bacteria were here for 2.5 billion years, and they learned how to change the Earth into life, and they learned genetic engineering, and they finally figured out multicellular life and photosynthesis, all without a manual and no hands. She does a wonderful story on the back. She loves those bacteria. And then, of course, came the nucleated cells and then the multicells. And she said the way you overcome your enemy, instead of killing them, you feed them. So the way nature has worked is not just by altruism, but by finding the best way to survive is to, if you are superior, is to feed that which would attack you, and then eventually multi-cells and vast communities of cells. So if you look at Earth from that perspective as a microcosm of a whole planetary body, that's just a larger view of microcosm.
What kind of type of fulfillment does it bring you after being through this process for so many years?
Well, one of the great parts of it is I'm meeting so many people who are awakened to the idea that not only is our crisis is at birth and something new is emerging out of the crisis, but they personally are that something new. Like you. It's not that somebody else is doing all this. When I got started, I never met anybody like me. Not one single person in Lakeville, Connecticut. And I met one, I was thrilled. And Teilhard described it as homo progressivus. It's people with a deep sense of the future as an organism progressing toward the unknown, a mysterious attraction to what's emerging. Now, I meet and know of thousands and probably millions. So for me, one of the greatest joys is the communion of souls awakening. And the fact that I'm an elder of that group, so I get to meet and see and be with people like this. And now with internet, because you can reach out to the entire world, I realize it doesn't matter where anybody lives. We're all here. And I've coined a new word, it's every here, instead of everywhere. The media, particularly the teleseminar and internet world. So I feel extremely excited, grateful, a certain joy, and a desire for everybody who is suffering to know that there's some meaning in this suffering, so that what is emerging in us through the suffering, and how to handle that suffering from the point of view of what's emerging.